Nah. Ah. Lame. Come on. We've all been there. Today, we are talking about how to find your best performance when it is time to record. What's up, everyone? Thanks for joining me this week. As always, it's that time of year. If you're a high school student, you might be diligently preparing your all-state audition material for whatever state you live in. If you're a college student, maybe you just wrapped up this semester's ensemble placement auditions, or maybe you're just a professional musician and you've got a recording date coming up and you want to make sure you are able to access your best playing when it really matters. All right, so let's back up to the scenario that opened up this week's video. So when we hit record, it's probably going to cause us to make some sort of bonus mistakes compared to how we normally are working in the practice room. That little bit of extra pressure that's there can really cause some things to creep in your playing that are normally not problems. You hit record, first take, you're going through, maybe you make a relatively small mistake somewhere pretty early on in the piece. You stop, you say, okay, you know what, I got that under control. I'm going to try to get a good full take here with no mistakes. You record take number 2. Maybe you make it 2/3 of the way down the piece, and then you make a relatively glaring mistake. So again, you stop and say, man, that was a good take. I wish I really could have kept that one. So you go on to take number 3. Suddenly, some mistakes that you never make, maybe mental mistakes, start to creep into your playing. Little things that were never a problem in the practice room start to become a problem. So you stop for a second, collect yourself, try take number 4. You say, all right, I'm going to play this really conservative. Maybe take the tempo a little bit back to make sure you can get something laid down. But then suddenly, your sound isn't working, your air isn't working, maybe there's not enough musicality happening because you're just trying to get the right notes. By then, you're probably starting to feel a little frustrated. Maybe your chops are starting to feel a little tired. You feel like, I've done 4 takes, but I still don't have anything that is usable. This is the classic death spiral for us as musicians in the recording studio. Today, we got to talk about how to avoid this chain of events. There are 2 things that I want you to do in order to help yourself be more successful when it comes time to record important things like auditions, like recording a project in the studio. The first thing, I want you to make recording a regular part of your practice. If you have a workflow going in your practice sessions where recording is something you do regularly, you're actually going to get used to that little bit of pressure that is there. Now, certainly it's different when you're just recording in the practice room than when you're recording in an important situation, but still you'd be surprised if you never record yourself in the practice room and you start doing that, you are going to feel the pressure and it's going to make you make mistakes that you're not used to. So this can just train us to be able to create, bam, right when we need to, when we think it really matters. The second reason I want you to make recording a regular part of your practice is because it is the best way for us to get feedback about our playing. We're actually generally pretty bad at evaluating ourselves while we're playing. It's kind of a classic, you can't ride a bike and fix a bike at the same time sort of paradigm. So what we want to think about is that when it is time to perform or time to play or time to record, 100% of our focus is on the task at hand. After we have recorded, then we can listen back from an objective standpoint and not have to focus on what was happening while it was happening. We can actually observe what was happening. You want to avoid making sort of value judgments about your playing, like that sounded good or I could play that better. Instead, you want to focus on objective things that are sort of little components of what make us sound the way we want to. Maybe my sound was focused, or maybe my sound was less than focused. I really nailed that chord change. I was or was not playing with a lot of expression. Little articulation there. My sound is not quite as even through some of those notes as I would like it to be. So, next, rather than feeling like I want to actively fix these problems, I would just try it again, knowing that these things are at the forefront of my mind, particularly the things that I want to hear. Not working from a perspective of like, oh, my sound was bad in that last take, but working from a perspective to think about what makes a good sound? What do I want to hear in my sound? Keeping that at the forefront of my mind, and then trying to record again and see if that can help to pull those elements together. Not only is this going to help us in the practice room and help us practice really effectively and efficiently, but this is going to set your brain up to be an effective performer, as again, you're focusing on a proactive way of playing. Rather than trying to avoid mistakes, you're really thinking about what are the sounds that I hear in my head and then making them come out of your instrument. So it's a great way to get this stuff to transfer into the performance space. So how do we take this then and make it work to make sure we can nail the next audition that we have to record? For me, when I'm recording something important, those effects of that little bit of pressure tend to be magnified. For example, this stuff that I record on YouTube is some of the more stressful playing that I do. I would much rather play live as a soloist than record here in this format, just because I know the people who are listening to this are other musicians. It's something that I really want to make sure that I am playing my best. Hopefully I usually do, but sometimes, it's only mostly my best as sort of I try to get through things in an efficient manner. So it really makes those mistakes creep in. So for me, to help this whole recording process be more efficient, I institute a 3-take rule on every example that I do here on YouTube. This means that for any example that I record, I do 3 complete takes before I worry about evaluating the quality of those takes. After I do those 3 takes, I'll go back and listen through and evaluate whether I got what I needed. Okay, the first A flat could have been a little cleaner. Cool, I thought that one was actually pretty solid, especially compared to the first one. Pretty similar to take 2. I would say they're about the same. After you evaluate those 3 takes, you're going to find that probably one of them was pretty solid. If not, you're going to get a ton of useful, usable information that is going to help you make the next take better. Sometimes you got to do more than 3 takes to capture what you're going for, especially if it's challenging music, that sort of stuff. But if you can't lay down something relatively solid in 3 takes, you're realistically probably not ready to record yet. All right, I hope that gives you a little bit of insight in how I handle this aspect of being a musician. Now, this is not to say that it never takes me 7 takes to get what I'm looking for. Unfortunately, it does sometimes, and it's not to say that I never get frustrated when I'm here recording stuff for YouTube, or maybe get stressed out when I'm recording in the studio for a more creatively driven project. I hope all of you who are made it this far and maybe are high school students, college students working on auditions can take some of this stuff and try to, bring it into your practice. It's really something that I think most young musicians need to practice to get better at. And even older musicians like myself, we can still stand to improve a lot in this area. So that way we can make sure we can always find our best performances when we really need them. Cool. We'll see you in the woodshed.